Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So let me get my notes up. So let's talk about what today's show is all about. So the Raspberry Pi shortage is over, nearly. So do you want to learn more about all the Raspberry Pi hats that there are in the universe? There is a lot of hats. There's hats, PHATs, watts, bonnets and shims. So if you want to learn about those, then this is the show for you. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we learn to build robots, bring them to life with code and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, let's get over to our show notes and let's make a start, shall we? So yes, you can buy as many as you want. There's an asterisk in there. We'll get to that in a minute. So today, yeah, we want to have a look at the end of an era. You can buy now practically as many Pis as you like of a specific type. I've got a couple on my desk over here, which is the Raspberry Pi W. You can get as many of these as you like now, as long as it's 10 at a time. We're going to have a look at the differences between all the hats, PHATs, watts, shims, bonnets and so on. And we're going to have a look at every single one I could find on the internet. And there is a lot of them, so there's going to be an information-rich show for you today. So we're going to hold on to your hat. We're going to have a deep dive into all the different hats. And if you're still alive at the end of this, we'll have a bit of a Q&A and a mailbox on the live stream as well. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? So the shortage is over. So there's a tweet that went out this week from Alistair from Raspberry Pi, and he was saying practically, for all intents and purposes, the Raspberry Pi shortage is over. And this is because Pimroni tweeted out that you can now buy up to 10 Raspberry Pi 0Ws per order. So there is a small cooling off period between restocks, but I think they're getting quite regular restocks now. It's either every week or every 2 weeks. Possibly multiple times in the week, and there's a lot of them about. So when I check the availability of these, you can buy them right now. You can order 10 if you want to. I think they're about £15, $15 thereabouts, €15, that kind of price. And this effectively ends the shortage of Raspberry Pis because you can practically buy as many as you want to have now without having to pay scalper prices. And it's a very capable board. I've got a number of them on my desk over here. So I built the Raspberry Pi cluster out of these. The Zero cluster. It had 12 Raspberry Pi Zeros all in a sort of configuration. So the Raspberry Pi 400 02W, which is the later one, and the Compute Module 4s, they're also expected to be sort of around about pre-COVID levels by the end of the year. And that certainly is showing to be the case now. And the Raspberry Pi 3 Plus, the smaller one that doesn't have the network connectivity, doesn't have the Ethernet connectivity, but I think it does have Wi-Fi, does it? That one has also maintained wide availability for the past couple of months as well. So go to pimroni.com and check out all the different Raspberry Pi bits and pieces you can buy now. You can also still buy a Raspberry Pi 4 2 gigs. I think they seem to be quite available too. So let's have a look at hats, PHATs, watts, and bonnets and shims as well. There's a lot of these different things. What do they all mean? So I didn't find a definitive source of this. So this is what me and ChatGPT came up with. So a hat is hardware attached on top. So if you know a different acronym or a different meaning behind that, let me know in the comments below, because I want to get this as factually correct as possible, because people come at me in the comments if I get anything ever so slightly wrong. So hats are an add-on board that conform to a specific standard set out by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. They always say foundation, that's the sort of charitable side. I think what they meant is Raspberry Pi, which is the commercial side. They do all the hardware. So the hats have a specific size, form factor, and designed to perfectly fit on top of your Raspberry Pi Model B Plus or later, and that's the ones with the 40-pin headers on them, so pretty much everything apart from the very first models that were out there. And the hats include a little EEPROM, a little electronically erasable, programmable, read-only memory chip that allows the Raspberry Pi to automatically configure itself to work on the hat. I'm sure that's true for all of them, that's something that was suggested. And then a PHAT. So what is a PHAT? So a partial hardware attached on top, or sometimes they're called bonnet. I think Adafruit calls these bonnets. These are similar to hats, but they're designed to fit on the smaller form factor of the Raspberry Pi Zero. However, they can attach to a regular Raspberry Pi, so a 3 or 4 or 2, anything with the 40-pin headers basically. So they adhere to the exact same specification except for size, and they're usually half the size of a standard hat. So like HATs, PHATs also have that little EEPROM chip, so the configuration can be automatically figured, although that's not a strict requirement. So what about the other? What's the watts all about? So watts, how would you pronounce that? Watts are relatively new. They are not really part of the formalized specification from Raspberry Pi, and they design on providing wireless connectivity. So for example, I have got here a LoRaWAN module. So this one is a little HAT, and this one has a chip on it which enables you to collect to LoRaWAN. So it's a little LoRaWAN module. It also has a little antenna that goes with it. It's a little bit annoying, that one, but just because the antenna seems to go everywhere. So that's what watts are. They typically use for wireless communication, such as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, etc., any kind of RF. Now, shims are usually very slim. They're designed to fit in between the Raspberry Pi and the HAT, and they provide additional functionality. So you might see things like a battery shim, where you can put like a LiPo battery to power your Raspberry Pi. Things like that. I think Captain Resetty was also a shim. That's a little on-off button that you can have as well, a reset button that you can add to your Raspberry Pi. So unlike the HATs and PHATs and watts, the shims don't require a specific standard, and they generally just sort of, they're quite bespoke depending on what the purpose of that is. And it says here, please note the categorization of add-on boards varies widely between manufacturers, so pretty much everyone calls them either a HAT or a PHAT. That seems to be pretty much the standard out there. So expanding your Raspberry Pi. So there are hundreds, literally hundreds, and we'll look at most of them today, of the Raspberry Pi HATs that are available for every single type of project you can imagine, and probably some that you haven't even thought of yet. So that's why I thought it'd be quite good to go through these. So let's investigate what is out there. That one that's on screen at the moment, I want to get one of these. This is a little cluster HAT, so you can put 4 Raspberry Pi Zeros on top of your Raspberry Pi 4 or 3, and then you can run that as a little mini cluster with all the power you need. So there is a site on the internet that you may or may not have heard of, and you should have heard of it if you're a Raspberry Pi fan like me, and that's pinout.xyz. So let's have a bit of a deep dive to pinout.xyz. So this is a pinout website, as the name suggests, and it gives you every single Raspberry Pi HAT, PHAT, WAT or shim that's out there. Pretty much has been captured on this site by Phil. He's done this completely on his own. He's had some support from community, I guess, but he's sort of self-hosts the site and keeps it maintained completely for free of use. There's no charge for actually using this. So I basically mined this. I mined this site for as much information as possible, and I found that there were some bits of information missing. So I will put those in like a pull request later on and send it through to Phil so he can update the site with a few more hats that I actually found. So if you haven't checked out pinout.xyz, I suggest you have a look at that immediately. Pause this video, go and have a look at it. Come back when you've looked at it, and certainly buy him a coffee as well for the hard work that he's done for this, because he's totally earned it. So let's get straight to it, shall we? So Fortronics is the first place we're going to start, and they've got a couple of hats that we can look at. So the qubit base. So a qubit is one of those LED cubes where you've got like a whole number of LEDs, maybe like is it 3 lots of 3, so like 9, no, maybe 9, 9 and 9, 27 LEDs in a sort of cube formation, and this allows you to basically control that through a Raspberry Pi hat. The Pi Stop traffic lights one is a very, very simple one that simply just connects in, and that has 3 LEDs, red, green and blue. And the Pi Step Dual and the Pi Step 2 Quad, essentially the same thing. One has 2 motor drivers on it, and the other one has 4 motor drivers on it, so they can drive a different number of motors, and that's pretty much what they do. It's very, very straightforward. I'm not going to dive into all the details on each board because we simply won't have time to do this. So the other couple of boards that Fortronics have is the Picon Zero. So this is, let me see what this one said. This is another H-bridge, so it's another motor driver. And then there's the RoboHat, which is a bit more designed for robotics. So I guess they did some driver boards for motors and thought, why don't we go the whole hog and make this more for robotics? So they've got like a 5 volt connector there, 3-pin terminals, and you can have some servos I think on there as well. So a bit of an all-rounder. Not sure how old the RoboHat is. I've not got any dates of any of these things. Next is AB Electronics UK. So they have the one-wire Pi Plus and the one-wire Pi Zero. These are basically the same board in different form factors. And this is an interface board for the one-wire standard, so you can connect in things, it says there, over the I2C bus. And they also have the ADC differential Pi and the ADC Pi. So again, they're very similar in what they can do, and they provide an analog to digital conversion, and they're designed to work with the Raspberry Pi. So they use that MCP3424 chip to do a lot of the conversion. And the ADC Pi, I think they're both basically the same. One's 18-bit and one's 17-bit analog. We're actually going to have a look at analog waveforms in a future video that I've got planned. It's going to be a pre-recorded one. So if you're interested in that, we can look at that later. So the ADC Pi Plus has been discontinued, and the ADC DAC Pi Zero is a sort of zero version of this. And again, they provide very similar functionality to the boards that we've seen on the other screen, which is ADC conversion at very, very high bit rate. So you get really high quality representation of those analog waveforms. The Extender Pi, so this is another analog board, so it allows you to connect your Raspberry Pi to switches, light sensors, that kind of thing. And we have the IO Pi Plus, which is another digital expansion board for the Raspberry Pi. Again, just trying to skim read my notes on this one. It looks like it does a similar kind of thing to the Expander Pi there as well. So that's a couple of extra ones. We've got the IO Pi Zero, which is the same as the IO Pi, the large one from the other screen, but in the smaller form factor. And again, this one allows you to do more digital expansion, so you can have more. You can get at the pins easier. We've got the RS485. RS485 is like a RS232, but slightly higher standard of UART. So if you want to connect up, this is like really old school computing where you used to like have those little 9-pin D connectors on there, and you could plug in your analog joystick to your Amiga or your Atari. They use that similar kind of format. But RS485 is a serial protocol for communicating between devices. RTC Pi is a real-time clock that you can plug into your Raspberry Pi, so that Raspberry Pis don't come with a real-time clock. So unless you're connected to the internet, and you can get an update from sort of like time.apple.com or wherever you get your time protocol from, then you can basically just plug in one of these and it will keep the time even if the Pi goes off. And the RTC Pi Plus has been discontinued, but that's like a larger form factor. They've also got a number of different prototyping areas on those as well. The Serial Pi Plus is similar to that RS485 that we saw, but this one's for RS232, so you can communicate with other RS232 devices. Again, very old school. Some printers used to use that back in the day, and there was quite a few other like little robots and things that would use RS232. The Serial Pi Zero is a smaller version of that one, and the Servo PWM Pi Zero. This one is for connecting a whole number. How many does it say on there? Is it 16? Looks like it is 16 servo hobby servos using the 3-pin connector, and it will do that pulse width modulation for you there. So Adam says the CAN bus is a variant of RS485. There is a CAN bus. There's a whole bunch of those we'll have a look at in a minute. So if you like what I do and you want to help me create more videos and you want to support the show, make sure you give this video a like. Drop me a comment what your favourite Raspberry Pi hat is, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing that. And I do go live every single Sunday, rain or shine, at 7 o'clock UK local times, whether that's GMT or British Summer Time, which is what we're in now. So Adafruit, they've got a whole number of boards. Let's have a look at those. So they've got the 16:2 character LCD display. I think I've got one of these somewhere, and this is like a real fun one to get into, displaying things on a screen quite simply. Nowhere near as complicated as using like a graphics display, but you've got those nice two lines to put the characters on there, for 16 characters each. The arcade bonnet is for using something like similar like the, you can see just behind me there, there's the Raspberry Pi, the Pimoroni Picade. So this is a similar kind of board that allows you to build your own arcade machines with all the different connectors that you would need for that. And it's in the Raspberry Pi Zero form factor as well. The capacitive touch hat is one for doing capacitive touch, surprise, surprise. So you can connect up a number of things, a bit like the Makey makey board, so you can connect up crocodile clips and then have it detect if you touch things with it. So it's quite cool for doing quirky projects like that. Then we've got the DC stepper motor hat, so you can plug in a whole number of DC motors, and stepper motors. You can control them with that motor hat as well. These are quite old, I think, those ones. Then we've got the DPI TFT kipper, and this one is for connecting up LCD displays to your Raspberry Pi. Just using this, so very, very simple to do that. The Joy Bonnet is for creating like little handheld console game controller things. Very, very simple to do. So you can create like a emulator, a NES controller with your main game controller, and you can also connect that to like RetroPie for some game emulation. But then we've got the OLED bonnet. So they call these bonnets, which is just a quirk of Adafruit, and this one is 128 by 64 display, so it's black and white, one bit, yeah. Then there's the Pi-Girl gamepad. So this one is for their Pi-Girl gamepad project, which you can create like a Game Boy, but it's a Game Girl, and you can connect up a screen and everything like that. So this one's quite simple. Just plug it into the Zero, and you've got your gamepad controls there ready to go. Then they've got the Pi OLED, so this one is similar to the one we've just seen there, but this is on a much smaller form factor, 128 by 32-bit display. We've got the Pi real-time clock. Again, you can see there's a bit of a market for real-time clocks, and this one's really, really small, and you can simply just put a little coin cell battery in there and connect it onto the headers. This one looks more of a shim than it does like a proper hat or a PHAT, so this one can just push in place, and you can probably put other hats on top of that. Then you've got the Pi TFT Plus 3.5. I think I've had one of these. It might even be in that little computer just behind me there, actually, and that one is running 480 by 320 16-bit color display, so you can do all kinds of nice little projects with that. And they've got the RGB matrix bonnet, and this one is for plugging in RGB LED matrices, like I've got one behind me there, but I don't think I've got it switched on at the moment. A bit like the Pimoroni sell them as well. They call like an interstate, and there's basically just like a hub display. So that one allows you to drive one of those. Then we've got the RGB matrix hat and RTC, so they bundled in the matrix hat as well as a real-time clock. There's the servo pulse width modulation hat. Again, this one allows you to control a whole bunch, I think 16 servos, hobby servos, a bit like the PCA 9685 board, but as a hat. Then there's the Snake Eyes bonnet. This one, it's an accessory for driving up to 228 by 128 OLED or TFT displays, so you can display some like pretty big like eyeballs on there for a project, so you can make some eyes like look left and right. I think they had a project for that. So that's the Snake Eyes bonnet, and then there's the speaker bonnet, which lets you plug in a speaker and hear some quality sound through a 3-watt speaker amplifier. So it uses I2S to do that. Then the last one from Adafruit for now is the Ultimate GPS hat. So this one allows you to detect satellites in orbit, get the positioning of where you are in 3D space, and then plot that on the map. And it comes with a built-in real-time clock as well, so it's pretty cool. Okay, next up we have PHAT. So this one, they're mostly based around audio, you can see there. So we've got the PHAT Audio, the Audio Z, the Audio Z version 2, and the Pi Digital Audio Z V1. And these ones have sort of nice connectors on there. So you've got the, like, what they called RCA connectors for doing audio. So you've got a pair on the PHAT Audio. The Audio Z has got the smaller 3.5mm jack style connectors, as does the version 2. And then the digital audio is for connecting up fiber optic cables as well. So you can use that for your projects that have that kind of audio. Okay, Google have a number of Raspberry Pi hats. So they have the AI Vision bonnet. They call them bonnets as well. So this one is part of the Vision kit that's provided by Google, and it's like a do-it-yourself vision, computer vision system. It's pretty cool because they've taken some of that processing onto the hat, so you don't have to do everything on your Raspberry Pi, which I think when these first came out, Raspberry Pis weren't quite there. So the Raspberry Pi 4's got more than enough power to do real-time open vision, open CV, computer vision, so this was kind of a little bit before its time, I guess. There is also the AI voice bonnet. I had this project. I've got the little cardboard box in the drawer behind me with a little arcade button on top, and this was a bit like build your own like Alexa, and you could press a button and it would basically just connect to Google's voice services and do whatever you ask it to do. It's pretty cool, and it had a speaker in there. So this is the hat that drives that. The AI voice hat, similar to the voice bonnet, but this one is for the full-size version. And then there's the Coral Environment Sensor Board, and this one adds multiple environmental sensors using those Grove connectors to your Coral dev board, and it's a little screen on there as well, which is pretty neat. So the IQ Audio I/O, I think these have actually been bought by Raspberry Pi. We'll have a look a bit later on when we get to the Raspberry Pi bunch. But so the Pi DAC Plus, the Pi DigiAmp Plus, these are two really high quality audio boards for the Raspberry Pi. You can see there the specs of it, but essentially you can basically make your own home hi-fi connect up to your Raspberry Pi. Just Boom, they have some more audio hats for your Raspberry Pi. So they have the Amp Hat, the Amp Zero, the DAC Hat, and the DAC Zero. So the Amp Hats are basically just amps, as the name suggests there. So there are 255 watt outputs for speakers, so you can connect up some nice speakers to your projects. Similar with the Amp Zero, that's just 240 watt instead. And the DAC Hat is a digital to analog conversion, so it can bring sound in through a number of different sources there. And the DAC Zero is just like a smaller version of the DAC Hat. Then they've got the Digi Hat. This one is similar to the other Digi one we saw before, which has the optical in as well as the other connector that's on there, the coaxial RCA type connector. And the Digi Zero is a smaller version of that as well. It's got the optical connectors on there as well. Okay, Mod My Pi. So Mod My Pi have got a small number of fun projects. They have the Christmas tree star and they have the jam hat. So these ones are obviously designed for people who just want to have a bit of fun with the hat, and you can drive all the different LEDs on there. And similar with the jam hat, you've got some buttons, a speaker, and you've got two sets of LEDs as well on there for some fun projects. So there's a whole category called Other. We'll have a look at some of these. We've got the Audio Injection Zero Sound Card. So as the name suggests, this one does audio output and input. Now there's two car ones. So Adam was talking about that a couple of minutes ago in the chat. So there's the let me get this right, Kanaka. Is that right? Kananka. It's a Raspberry Pi hat for the CAN bus communication. So if you've got a car with most cars have this CAN bus there, you can plug in, connect to this, to your Raspberry Pi, and you can get all your vehicle statistics and data and configuration from there. I'm not sure what software would come with that, but you'd have to check out their website for that. And Carberry is similar. This one has CAN bus connectivity again to your Raspberry Pi, and you can do things like bring in make it media center, vehicle diagnostics, data logging, fleet management, tracking, and so on. Black boxes, burglar alarms, carpooting, they call it, internet, much more. And then this is quite a fun one, the Cirrus Logic audio cards. Back in the day, Cirrus Logic used to do graphics cards. I had quite a few number of, is it 5446, 5464 Cirrus Logic graphics cards back in the day, but they also do audio cards. So this one has a whole load of connectors on there. You can see they pretty much got every type of connector you could want, in and out, as well as the digital versions as well. So the RCA, the 3.5mm jacks as well. So pretty full featured audio card there. Good grief. They like their very difficult to pronounce product names there. So the D16AC DQ6RLY I to Z hat. So this one is another audio hat. What does it say on there? It's got 6 isolated digital input channels and 6 relay channel outputs. So this one, I think it is audio actually. That looks like it's for switching. If it's got relays on it, it's for switching large voltages. So it's not audio at all, that one. Then we've got the disco hat. This one is for switching lights. So if you've got a lighting rig, say you're doing like a school production, a theatre production, and you want to control all your lights, your lighting rig, you can connect using the disco hat. Then we've got the Polulu Dual G2 high power motor driver. So this is a kind of robotics type board. You can drive a whole bunch of large brushed DC motors, and they've got quite a few different types you can do there. And then there's the Flex, which is let's see, has a relay, an infrared LED LED. It's got an IR photo sensor, buzzer, so it's like a bit of a home automation hat Flex. Then we've got the GPIO button adapter. So this is just 6 on-off buttons, little momentary push tack switches on a hat. Then we've got the Internet of Things PHAT. So this one is from Red Bear, and this one has the BCM 43438 chip on there, and it also has some Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So not really sure what that one is bringing to it, but it's apparently a must-have for the Zero. So maybe it's just bringing Wi-Fi to the original Zero. They've got the Juicebox Zero. So the Juicebox lets you power your Raspberry Pi via a battery. So I think somebody was asking about that in the chat earlier. This is one solution to do that. There's another one a bit later on as well that we can look at. And then there's the Let's Trust TPM. So this is one of these trust platform modules, trusted platform modules, and this one allows you to bring that chip to your project, so you can do some very secure transactions, key store, and so on there. It also has a hardware random number generator. Then we've got the MDB hat. So this one is from Quibix, and this one is has the MDB machine data bus, which is found in loads of vending machines. So there's quite a few on here that's for that kind of industry. So if you have like a vending machine and you want to interface this with a Raspberry Pi, these 3 boards on here can do that. So you got the MDB2 Pi hat, and as well as the Monaco hat as well. I think that one is also it's for the industrial PC usage, that one. So PLCs and so on, a bit like we use in the company I'm currently working for, a large cereal company. They use all kinds of plant logic controllers, as they call PLCs, and they use the RS485 as well. And then the MIARM, so shout out to Ben there, MIARM. Hoping to get one of these in the post in the next couple of days. So MIARM is a really fun project for controlling a robot arm. So it's a whole robot arm ecosystem, and the MIARM Pi hat enables you to control your MIARM robot arm from your Raspberry Pi. So when I get that, I'll do a whole show on that one, because I can't wait to get on there. The NAD hat version 1 is a GSM GPRS module for your Raspberry Pi in a hat form factor, so you can send text messages and that kind of stuff using the cellular network. So that's pretty cool. Just runs on a coin cell battery as well. It does need a micro SIM card and a subscriber line to work with it, so you'll need a subscription to a data plan for that. Then there's the Navi 2 Autopilot. So this one is designed for cool robotics projects, and obviously works with that platform, the Navi 2 platform. And it says it's for things like moving robots, boats, cars, multi-rotors and planes. So there's a whole bunch of connectors on there. Connectors on there, as well as a looks like some kind of RF thing on there. The Pi Cap is a capacitive touch, which means we can do some funky things with RGB LEDs and again, general kinds of projects you do, a bit like the Makey. Then we have the Pi Lite R. This one is a board for, I should have made some more notes on this before I looked on screen for these. So the Pi Lite is a fully assembled add-on board for the Raspberry Pi with 8 ultra bright LEDs. Alright, so basically just a bunch of LEDs. So 8 ultra bright white LEDs. That's for fun projects. PiMote is similar. So this one is a PiMote RF transmitter with an onboard control that allows up to 4 energy radio control sockets using Python. That's pretty cool. Also, it's like a remote Pi remote. And the PiTop Pulse is a Raspberry Pi hat for PiTop Seed computers. So if you remember the sort of Raspberry Pi laptops, they're usually quite bright green from Seed computing. This is a speaker module for that. We have the Pibrella. This one is let's have a C, a serial with both serial and I2C free, leaving plenty of room for expansion. So you've got some nice a speaker on there, you've got a push button, you've got 3 buttons like traffic lights, 3 LED button. I keep calling buttons 3 LED lights on there as well. PiJack is another way to bring in an Ethernet connector, an RJ45, Ethernet, however you pronounce that, to your projects. This again was probably designed for computers before we had like the Raspberry Pi 4 with the built-in, Raspberry Pi 3, Raspberry Pi 2 with the built-in Ethernet RJ45 connector. But if you've got a Zero and you want to bring in that connector, then this is a nice easy hat to do that. Pi Shield is an iCube X Pi Shield 5-volt sensor interface that supports 8 channels, 10-bit ADC, so it does ADC, level conversion from 5 volts as well. So that one, not sure, it's basically just a sensor interface. We have the Pi Voyager UPS, so people were talking before about batteries and so on. This one enables you to plug uninterruptible power supplies into your Raspberry Pi to both monitor the UPS as well as provide uninterruptible power as well. Then we've got the Raspberry Zigbee add-on board. So this is a really fun one. This allows you to basically connect to your home automation systems, your lights, whatever you have that uses the Zigbee protocol. Supports up to 200 devices, which is pretty cool. And it means you basically just hack your home automation system at a very low level. Then we've got the Raspberry. A lot of them are either called Pi or Raspberry, excuse me, or some pun on Pi, which is, when you start to see them all lined up, it looks a little bit repetitive. But the Raspberry hosts a Sigma Designs ZM510 Z-Wave transceiver. So this is another type of home automation. Z-Wave is used quite a bit in like LED. You've either got a Zigbee or Z-Wave. There's a couple of other different protocols for doing home automation and security systems. So that's Raspberry. Real-time hat. So this one has a extends the gigabit Ethernet connectivity of your Raspberry Pi, adding professional networking functions. Typical applications are in industrial usage. So you get a whole bunch of extra. Looks like you've got 3 extra gigabit Ethernet connectors on there, RJ45. And then we have the RPI Spark. So this one is a software development kit, and the software development kit lets you easily build Raspberry Pi GPIO projects. So you can do like remote control cars, balancing cars, sports pedometers, servo monitors, and other things like that. So you've got a couple of buttons on there, a bit of a joystick, and it looks like there's a tiny little OLED screen on there as well. We've got the RPI2 one-wire host adapter. So this one helps you connect to one-wire projects. Then we have Score Zero, which is a simple solder-free kit for putting together games. So you've got the left and right, up, down, A, B, start and select buttons, a bit like the Nintendo controller. And then we've got the Tentacle 3 for the Raspberry Pi and the Wi-Fi Pants, which has got to be, I think they win the award for the most bizarre name. So the Tentacle T3 hosts up to 5 EZO class devices from Atlas Scientific to measure pH, dissolved oxygen, electric conductivity, oxidization reduction. Sounds like the kind of stuff you'd have in your lab, all that kind of stuff. So yes, for use with Atlas Scientific instruments. Wi-Fi Pants is Wi-Fi and 5-volt boost power supply add-on for your Raspberry Pi, based around the ESP12F, which is a very popular chip, similar to the Raspberry Pi Pico, but a little bit more powerful. The Wi-Fi Pants board is fits the outline of Raspberry Pi Zero and has a small protrusion for the antenna, and only 6 GPIOs are needed for the Pi's extension. So again, this is a way of bringing Wi-Fi to some of the older Raspberry Pis that didn't have that. So let's have a look at a couple from Pi Supply. They've got some nice, interesting ones here. So the Flick Hat and the Flick Zero are both touch sensors. You can do a bit like on your phone when you've got capacitive touch and you can do all that kind of stuff. This gives you multiple ways of doing gesture and 3D tracking using this. So it's pretty cool board. I've not had one of those yet. I want to have a play with one of those. Then we've got the GERT VGA 666. Bizarre name. So this one is 6 bits of colour per channel, hence the 666 I see. And this is essentially a VGA adapter for your Raspberry Pi. So you can plug in an old-fashioned VGA monitor and get an output through that. And it can do up to 1080p 60 VGA video with no CPU load, which is pretty cool. Then we got the LoRa Gateway hat. So that's similar to the hat I have here. This is the smaller version, and this one allows you to create a LoRa gateway, and that's the it's like, what does LoRa stand for again? I always forget these things. So I don't think it says on there to help me out, does it? But it's like a long range radio basically. Very low bit rate, but you can go like kilometers with it. So then we got the, I think that's the one I've got there actually, yes. So the IoT LoRa node PHAT. This one allows you to connect an inexpensive LoRa node, make this compatible with the Things network in conjunction with the Raspberry Pi or the single board computers in minutes rather than hours. Then there's the PHAT. This one is an e-ink display, one of the first ones I think that came out. This one is so they have between 1.44 and 2.7 inch sizes. So unlike conventional displays, e-paper reflects light. So we've got some larger versions, but from Pimoroni, this is the Inky Impression 7.3. I've got a Raspberry Pi Zero plugged in the back on there, and this one has a glorious 7 colours on it, so we'll have a look at that one. I've got to do the video on that one soon as well. I've not done it yet. Then we've got the Papyrus Zero, which is a smaller version for the Raspberry Pi Zero, and then we have the PoE switch hat, so power over Ethernet. So this is quite a popular way of powering your Raspberry Pi. So you can have like a long cable, and you can basically just plug in some power, put it into that cable, and then the Raspberry Pi can take that through this hat. There is like an official PoE hat, but this one was one of the first ones that came out. And then Pi Juice, so this is another way of powering your Raspberry Pi from a battery. So it's a fully uninterruptible power supply for your Raspberry Pi. It's got a real-time clock in there as well, and you can like put it on a schedule so it comes on and goes off at a certain time. So pretty cool, and that's one of the first ones that came out too. It's Piborg. That's quite a cool name. So LED Borg. So the Piborg LED Borg is an ultra bright RGB LED board for the Raspberry Pi. So there's quite a few of these. I quite like these Blinkit boards from Pimoroni. So these ones are very similar. It's just like a whole bunch of RGB LEDs. There's like 8 of them. They simply just push on to the header pins. Then we've got the TroPi. So this one is another RGB board. This one has 5 RGB LEDs. These are these APA 102Cs. So that's like the LED strips. So it uses a slightly different. You only need like 1 data pin or a clock possibly with that format. And then the Zero Borg, we have 4-channel controller. So this one supports configuration I2C slave addresses, blah blah blah. Let's have a see what else that does. So yeah, it's essentially like another robotics board for driving motor controllers, for driving motors. Okay, so then we have from PHAT, we have the 3D Christmas tree. I think I bought this one actually. I've got that in one of my project boxes somewhere. And essentially just has a whole bunch of LEDs that you can put in place. It's quite a fun thing to build around the Christmas sort of period. Then there's the CamJam EduKit 3 motor controller boards. This one has been designed by CamJam, who's this Cambridge Raspberry Jam computer club down in Cambridge. So that one controls a whole bunch of motors. Then we've got the Moto Zero. I do have that one. I think I've actually got it installed on one of the projects. I can't see it off the top of my head though. So this one's great for driving motors from a Raspberry Pi Zero. And I think, is it 4 that it can drive? Yeah, 4 separate motors. So it's pretty cool for doing things like, what's it called? I can't think of the word now. This kind of thing. You've got the wheels, mechanism wheels, that's what I'm trying to say. If you've got 4 motors, you can control a mechanism robot. Okay, then we've got the Zero Seg. So this one is these 8 character 7-segment displays. So you can do that. It's very simple. You can see the big chip underneath there. It's quite an old IC type thing. And you've got 2 buttons on there as well. Okay, well, we're about halfway through now, I think. So we've got Pimoroni next. So there's a whole, I think they make more hats than any other company. So first of all, we have the Audio Amp Shim. So this one is an amplifier and digital to analog conversion. Just pushes on onto the pins, which is pretty cool. Then there's the Audio DAC Shim. So this one's a similar one, and this one can do some crisp audio, 24-bit, 192 kilohertz stereo through a 3.5mm jack. We've got the automation hat. I have one of those right here on my desk. So this one is for doing home automation. You've got 3 relays on there as well, and you can you can do a whole bunch of extra things on the bottom pins as well, switching some pretty high voltages, like 24 volts, all DC stuff. Then there is the Automation Hat Mini. I think I have that one as well somewhere. I don't think I've got it on my desk though. And that one, oh, I have got it on now, actually. There it is. So this one has one relay, and it also has a really nice little screen on there. I love the graphics on the display on that one. It looks a little bit like Star Trek TNG. Then we've got the Automation PHAT. That one is, I think, a slightly older one, but that one is another Automation hat. Then we've got the Blink, which I've got the packs of here. Just showed you those. So these are these RGB LEDs. There's 8 of them, and they simply just push onto the top of the header. We've got the Breakout Garden. I think I have one of those here. I've got the smaller version. So this is the 3 version. So it's got the SPI and the I2C connectors for the Breakout Garden. It just has the connector on there as well, and that the larger version has got twice the number than the little version I've got down there. Why have I gone out of focus? Focus. Then we have the button shim. This is a whole bunch of 5 tactile buttons for bringing buttons to your Raspberry Pi projects. Then we've got the display hat. I have one of those right here on my desk. These are really gorgeous. So this is a 320 by 240 display. Connects onto the Raspberry Pi as you'd expect, and you've got 4 buttons as well, A, B, X and Y. Then we've got the Displayotron hat, which is like a really fun wacky display. There's the Displaytron 3000, so that's a 3-line character LCD display, and there's the drum hat. I haven't got the drum hat, I have got the piano hat somewhere. So the drum hat allows you to do like it's a companion hat to the piano one, and you can basically just form your own band with little Raspberry Pis. So coming up now is some of my favourite boards. So the Enviro PHAT, Enviro Plus, and yeah, those 3, all part of that Enviro range, are some of my favourite boards. So the Enviro Plus I actually have in my studio just over there, and that one's constantly monitoring all the different particulates in the air. So it's got the BME 280 temperature, pressure and humidity sensor. It's got a light and proximity sensor. It's even got a sound level sensor in there, and a MEMS microphone, and it's got that lovely colour display on it as well. So you can connect it to them PM503 particulate sensors as well. The Enviro non-plus version just doesn't have that particulate sensor, but it's pretty much similar apart from that. And then over there on the bottom there we have the ESP IoT PHAT. So this one allows you to connect to Wi-Fi. Again, for your Raspberry Pi Zeros that don't have Wi-Fi already, it has the ESP8266 on it. Then we've got the Explorer hats. So Explorer hats, I was trying to find one before actually. I've got one actually in this robot here. These are some of my favourite boards. For the cost of them, they're very cheap, but you can build robots very cheaply with a Raspberry Pi Zero. So the Explorer Hat Pro and Explorer PHAT all allow you to connect a number of different things to your Raspberry Pi and make them into like little robots and things. So the Explorer Hat and Explorer Hat Pro, they have 5-volt inputs, touch pads, LED analog inputs, H-Briggs motor controller so you can drive your motors. It's a bit of a jack of all trades, and they usually come with an area where you can put like a miniature breadboard as well, which is pretty cool. Don't think I've got that to hand actually as well, but yeah, that's a pretty fun thing to do. Then we have the fan shim. So this one, I do have a number of these fan shims. These basically just push over the header pins and it gives you your CPU a bit of cooling. Very simple to apply. We have the 4-character PHAT. This seems to be a bit of a popular thing. These are really good for distance, and if your Raspberry Pi is sort of a bit further away from where you are, these are really clear displays. So you can do like the 14 segment displays, so you can do like the Y character, the R characters and so on, which you can't do on the 7 segment displays. Then there's the graphics hat. I think I have one of these right here. There it is. So this one is this is a similar one. This is a graphics pack. This one's for the Pico, but the graphics hat is basically the same thing, but it has is it 3 buttons instead of the 5 that are on here, but it's a LCD display. Really fun. We've got the Grow Hat Mini. This is another one of my favourite boards. I've got one of those at the back of the studio right over there, and this one allows you to connect up to 3 different plants sensors. It can do like it can do soil moisture sensing. What's it called? like humidity levels, as well as it'll do like light and temperature sensing. And this one also has the 3 connectors, so each plant can also have a water pump, and it can pump water based on the soil moisture level at that time, so it's really quite clever. And then the Hyperpixel, so the Hyperpixel 4 is possibly one of my favourite displays that there is, and the Hyperpixel was the one that came before that. So this is a 3.5 TFT display, 800 by 480. And then the Hyperpixel 4 is like a longer widescreen version, 800 by 480 as well on there, 60 frames per second, and that one is just a gorgeous. I use it in all the different projects. Then we've got the Inky Impression, so that's one of the Inky Impressions. There's actually 3 of these now. There's the 5.7, the 4, and then the 7.3, I think. That's the lineup. So they're 7 colour e-ink displays, absolutely gorgeous. Then we've got the Inky PHAT and Inky Watt. So the Inky PHAT is a black and white, or red and black and yellow and black display, yellow, black and white display. So they have like 2 or 3 colours on there, and then basically they just stay on there forever. It's really, really cool. So very, very low power. And the Inky Watt's a low power red, black and white, or yellow, black and white electronic display. So another like the Inky PHAT, but larger essentially. Then there's the Inventor Hat Mini. I've got a number of these on my desk over here. These are some of my favourite little displays, little motor controllers, and basically all-rounders for doing robotics projects. So these have got a whole bunch of connectors on there. So you've got 4 servo, 4 GPIO, 2 motors. There's even the like header connectors down there for like an ultrasonic rangefinder. You've even got audio on there as well if I flip it over, as well as the Quest connector and a reset button and a user button on there. So just a user button, sorry. So yes, you can do a whole bunch of things, and I've got a number of different projects. I'll put a link up on the little, where is it, that side of the screen that slides out with some links to videos on those. Then we've got the Pimoroni Keybow. So this one allows you to have 12 mechanical keys on top of your Raspberry Pi, so you can do all kinds of like Stream Deck type stuff on that. The Keybow Mini is a 3-button version of that. And then we've got the LED Shim, which has 28 RGB LEDs on the little Shim. Then there's the Microdot PHAT. This one has 30 by 7 pixels using these very, very bright LEDs. We have the Mote Hat. These are for the sports the Mote channels, so you can drive up to 64 RGB LEDs using 4 16 Mote strips. So these are the a bit like LED strips, but for motes. Then we have the on-off Shim. This is the very, very simple. You can switch your Raspberry Pi on and off with a little GPIO pin Shim. And then the Pan and Tilt Hat is for the Pan and Tilt project that they have. There's like a number of servos. You can put like a camera on there and have it sort of move around, and this hat will help drive that. So very, very simple. The Fat Beat. I don't think I've got the Fat Beats one. I have got one of the I've got the Speaker Fat. It's one of my very first Raspberry Pi hats that I bought back in the day. I've got the piano hat down there as well. So the Fat Beat one is a speaker driver essentially, and it has like a couple of LEDs that show you the sort of voltage level, the sound level. The Fat DAC is a digital to analog conversion hat. And then the piano hat, this is one of my favourite ones, just because of the quirkiness of it. It's the way they've got like, it looks like it says, it's like Steinway or something on there. Was it Framboise Dorf? So it's a 16 touch sensitive keys on there. So you've got a full octave, and there's a couple of chips on there that make this like really, really work. It's one of the funniest one of the funniest hats that you can get. Picade hat, I think that's now been superseded by the Picade X hat, and this one is for the Picade. So I've got a Picade behind me. If I go sort of full screen, you can just see about there. That's the Picade. Let's go back over here. And this is for driving all the different buttons, screens, and all that kind of stuff, speakers and whatnot. So there you go, the Picade X hat supersedes the Picade hat and provides the push-in headers for 10 arcade buttons and a joystick. So does all the heavy lifting of connections and stuff. Pi Glow, I think this is one of the very first hats. So I've got a question for you if you're still listening at this point. What was the very first Raspberry Pi hat? So I want somebody to go and find that out for me. It may well be the Pi Glow. I think that was one of the very first ones that came out there. And this one's got 18 individually controllable LEDs on there. Then we've got Pirate Audio. I think I have one of these as well somewhere. I've not got it on my desk though. I must have a box with them all in or something. So this one is 3-watt stereo amp. So you can basically just drive a bunch of speakers, and it's also got a nice 240 by 240 SPI LCD display. Then we've got the Pirate Audio dual mic. So this one can help with stereo recording, so you can basically use that to position where something is in 3D space with sound. If you're clever, it's also got the display on there as well. Then there's the headphone amp version of that as well, so you've got the headphone amplifier, and then there's the line out version as well. So line and headphone amp, I always thought these were the same, but they're a different voltage. So I think line out is slightly more powerful than headphone, I think. And then there is the Pirate Audio speaker, so you can drive a speaker through that. And then there's the propeller hat. This is another quirky one, like the little pirate man with his propeller hat on there. So this one brings 8-core parallax propeller microcontroller to the hat form factor. So you can program it and talk over serial using propeller ID. Not actually sure what this one does, but there you go. That's pretty quirky. It's got a whole bunch of connectors around the edge there. So yeah, I'd have to look at what propeller hat is all about. Then we've got the Rainbow Hat for Android Things. So this has got a whole bunch of, it says it has a rainbow hat with a buffet of sensors, inputs and displays to explore Android things. So I think that's like an app you can use to drive it. Then we have the Scroll PHAT. I think I have one of the Scroll PHATs somewhere, maybe not to hand, but I've certainly used these in the past. These are great for sort of scrolling messages past. You've got 55 white LEDs, which is really nice, with 5 pixels sort of deep by how many big pixels that is. Is that 11 across? Then we've got the Scroll PHAT HD, so this has got 119 pixels, so it's basically like twice the resolution of the other one. And then we have the Skywriter hats. This is similar to that Flick one we saw, where you can position your finger over and the display, over the surface, and it can detect in XYZ coordinates where your finger is. So you can do all kinds of gesture stuff on there as well. So David just said in the chat there, the propeller is a Gadgetoid project. He wanted to experiment with those parallel processors. Ah, I see, right. That's cool. So we've got the Speaker PHAT. So I do have that one on my desk over here. So the Speaker PHAT is a little speaker hat. So it actually has a speaker on the back there, just like a single 8 ohm 2-watt speaker, and it has 10 LED bar graphs LEDs on there, so it can sort of show you the sort of volume level. It's really, really fun. Then we have the Touch PHAT, similar to the piano one, but it's got less things on there. It's got 6 capacitive touch sensors on there. We have the Unicorn hat. So the Unicorn hat, this is where the galactic unicorn has its ancestry from. So the Unicorn hat has 64 blindingly bright LEDs. How it doesn't like reset the peak, I don't know. The Raspberry Pi, I don't know. Then we have the Unicorn HD, so that has 256 LED RGB pixels, so you can do all kinds of pictures and moving stuff on there. The Unicorn Hat Mini is a sort of smaller version of that, 17 by 7 matrix of LEDs. The Unicorn PHAT, this one has 32 LEDs, so again you can draw some scrolly text on there. You might struggle with text actually on a 4 pixel high. You could probably do it if you were creative though. So the wide input Shim. So the wide input Shim allows you to use a different range of DC power supplies with your Raspberry Pi, including the ubiquitous 12-volt barrel jack. It's super skinny, so it can be soldered straight to your Pis using your and still use a hat on top. Then we've got the Zero LiPo. So this one allows you to connect a LiPo battery to your Raspberry Pi. So that's another way, again, somebody was asking about how to power your Raspberry Pi. You can do this. This is probably one I would go for, the Zero LiPo. It's for rainbows, not text, David says. Thank you for that. The cluster hat, this is one of the ones I'm going to order shortly. This one, it's not actually by Pimoroni, but they do stock it. This one is the cluster hat, and it allows you to connect up to 4 zeros, which are not included, but you can buy them now in that quantity, and you can basically just connect them using the little USB connector that's stuck up there, and it allows you to control them all, and you've got a small scale cluster that you can then control, which is a load of fun. Whew, so that was Pimoroni. They were the biggest provider of hats, I think. So Plasma Dan, he has a 30 amp relay hat. This is like home automation. There's an appliance hat, again for like industrial control of machines and stuff. We've got the appliance hat mini, which has got 2 of them. The control hat, which has 4 solid state power relays. So again, you can switch that. And they also have the GPIO I2C PHAT, and that's another... let's see what it says there. Make use of extra hardware, blah, blah, blah. So you can switch for position, pull slide switches. So again, this looks like you can do some switching on there for home automation and stuff. So Raspberry Pi, so they do a number. So this is where Phil, I've found an extra couple of hats that we need to add to the pinout XYZ. So the dots board, this one is like a join the dots, but you use a conductive ink to join the dots together, and then once you've done that, they all sort of get pulled to ground, and then it'll light up or do whatever you want it to do. So that's quite a fun project, I guess, for an afternoon. Sense Hat is one of the most popular boards. I've got one over here in my studio, and this one has a whole bunch of sensors and things on there. It's got a little joystick on there. It's got that LED matrix on there, 8x8 matrix display. You've got a temperature sensor, barometric pressure and humidity, magnetometer, gyroscope, accelerometer. It's got all kinds of stuff. If you haven't got one of these, you definitely want to get one. It's a whole bunch of fun. And in fact, this is what the Astro Pi is based on. They basically just put like a different case around this, so that's like a whole bunch of fun to be had there. Now strangely, they also do the TV hat. I'm not sure what the project was behind this one, but they have like a digital DVB TV2 T2 sorry, and DVB-T tuner on board, so you can like watch TV on your Raspberry Pi. And then the one I was looking for just before the show and I couldn't find it, but I have got one of these, is the Build Hat, which allows you to connect all the Lego Mindstorms and Spike, Lego Spike robotic stuff into your Raspberry Pi Pico, Raspberry Pi 4, Raspberry Pi 3, Raspberry Pi 2, and you can then use like Python to control it, or something like PyBricks as well. We also have the Power over Ethernet hat. This one allows you to drive your Raspberry Pi power over the Ethernet cable, and therefore you don't need any external power other than that. We also have the Raspberry Pi digital to analog conversion. You can see this is clearly a thing where it doesn't have a DAC on board, so you have to bring that to it. And this one says previously known as the IQ Audio DAC Plus, so we looked at that one earlier. Then we also have the Raspberry Pi DAC Pro and DigiAmp Plus, and that was also previously known as the IQ Audio DAC Pro and the IQ Audio DigiAmp Plus, so we've already looked at those before. And then finally we have the Raspberry Pi Codec Zero, so this one allows you to bring in some extra audio stuff to your Raspberry Pi Zero, so you can do things like what's it say there, I2S audio, so you can drive that little speaker thing there. It says great starting point for audio projects such as a walkie-talkie, intelligent doorbell, smart speaker, or vintage radio hack. Previously known as the IQ Audio Codec Zero. Okay, we're nearly done now. This is a Rasp Audio, so Audio Plus Speaker Plus, Audio Plus Speaker Plus Microphone Plus. So these are basically a similar kind of board that brings in additional audio stuff to your Raspberry Pi Zero, and other boards as well. So you've got a speaker driver on the second and the third one, and then the third one has got a microphone as well. So that's the extra hats there. Next is Rasp.io. Raspio, I think they might pronounce that. So this is the Analog Zero. So this looks very old school with that IC chip there. And this one adds 8 analog channels to your Raspberry Pi. So another sort of DAC essentially. And then we have the Duino. So this Arduino small plug-in board for the Raspberry Pi has a similar functionality to the Arduino Uno with an 80 mega 32P-PU at its heart, which is the one that drives the Arduino Uno version 3, R3, and it can be removed from the Pi and used on its own. So essentially like a programmable Arduino as a hat. Okay, Ryan Tech next. So there's a couple of simple ones here. We've got the some motor drivers. You can drive, I think it's 2 motors with a external power input on that one. And then there's also the learn the basics of GPIO on a budget. All in all, a nice hat. So you've got a button there, I think, and a buzzer, and 3 RGB LEDs like traffic lights. Seed Studio next. So they've got a whole bunch of speaker ones. So the Speaker 2 has 2 microphones on a hat with a whole bunch of connectors for speakers. I've got a whole bunch of these. One of the issues I came up against on these is that the software hadn't been updated for the kernel, but I'm not sure if they've actually addressed that now. I guess they probably would have done. But yeah, this is a clone of them. This is from Key Studio. So they basically just clone the exact same format as the ReSpeaker. Then there's the ReSpeaker 4 microphone array. So you've got 4 microphones instead of 2, and it can do again that positioning and noise cancelling because it can figure out what's sound and what's just noise. And we've got the ReSpeaker 4 mic linear array. So this one is designed to be put on like a project where you need to do like at a distance, like Alexa or Google Assistant, that kind of thing, Siri. It can basically work out what the speech is by muting the background sound. And you can only do that if you've got a number of microphones. And then there is a 6 microphone array version of that as well, which is the ReSpeaker 6. So there we go. And then we got 6 Fab. So 6 Fab, I've got a whole bunch of interesting boards. So these are for cellular connectivity. So this one here, the 3G, 4G LTE base shield. So this one allows you to get up to 100 megabits down and 50 up, depending on the cell service that you've got. The next, the base shield version 2 is similar to the one that we just looked at, but I think it's a slightly physically larger form factor. We have the cellular IT automation hat. So this has got a whole bunch of things on here. It looks like you can do like automation at a distance. So you could have a Raspberry Pi and then have this automate all the different things that are on it. And it even has like a GPS, GNSS, GLONASS, etc. So you can basically just figure out where this is. So you could make this into like a robot lawnmower or something, and have that wirelessly control at a distance all the different things it needs to do to cut grass or whatever. Then we have the GPS shield. So this one, as you would expect, has got a GPS chip on there, so you can get positioning of that. We've got the GSM GPRS shield. So that one can do cellular, like text messaging, that kind of thing, 85.6 kilobits up. So yeah, SMS, text messaging, that kind of thing. We have the NB Internet of Things shield. So this one is suitable for applications that have low power consumption, 3-axis accelerometer, temperature, humidity, light sensor. So it's a bit of an all-rounder, this one. And it's got a 4-channel ADC on there as well. Then you got the GSM GPRS Shield version 1.5. So again, this one looks very similar to the one above. So you can just do like, again, like text messaging data connectivity. Then we have the XB Shield. So this one allows you to connect to the XB protocol, again, for like doing home automation, lights and that kind of thing. And then we have the XB Shield, which again, it says it has up to 28 miles of range. Just think about that, that's just insane. Point-to-point communication, communication LED, one-wire sensor breakout, and so on. So that's 6 Fab. Then we have Spark Fun. They have got a number. Again, these are a couple of extra ones, Phil, that we need to add to the XYZ. So the Spark Fun Pi Servo hat. This is basically just a PCA 9685 board as a hat. We've got the AVR Programmer hat. This one looks very similar to that one we saw before. So this one lets you program an AVR microcontroller chip that you'll find on Arduinos, a bit like the Arduino one we saw before, and you can basically just program it directly from an SPI hardware pins. So that's pretty cool. Then we have the GPS RTK Dead Reckoning FAT for Raspberry Pi. So this one has a GPS receiver on it, so you can basically just get positioning information. It also has that GNSS on there as well. And then the top hat, or top FAT, this one is feeling fancy. We're going to add a top FAT to your Pi FAT stack. So what does it actually do? So this one looks like it's got a buzzer on there. It looks like it's got a 2.4 inch TFT display and 6 RGB LEDs. And 3 switches that squeeze into this board, so a bit of a fun board to be had there. Well, the Auto FAT, this one is an all-in-one robotics package. So you've got on there a couple of 2 DC motor controllers without encoders, and 4 servo motors, and as well as a I2C connection. So then we have the Servo FAT. That one again looks like another PCA 9685, similar kind of board. So I think you've got 16 servo things on there, so it'll be the same board, same driver chip for all of them, I guess. Then we've got the Quick FAT. This one is for connecting the STEMMA QT quick connectors. So you've got 2 connectors on there. In fact, pretty much every Pimroni product now features one of those, at least one quick connector. So this is the Inventor Hat Mini. That's got 1 quick connector on there. This one's got, is it 4? And then we've got the Quick Hat. So this one has, let's see, I think it's at least 4 quick connectors on there. Very simple to, oops, get that up and running. Oops, let me just go back. There we go. So then we've got the Quick Shim. So this one just basically allows you to connect one STEMMA QT type connector as a shim, just through 3 pins, I think that is. And then we have the pulsed radar breakout. This is a very bizarre one. So if you want a high precision cutting edge distance measurement, then you can basically use this pulsed radar breakout. So that's a bit of a random one there. Then we've got Up Utronics. They have got a number of different low power radio based stuff. So we've got a GPS expansion board, we've got the LoRa expansion board, we have the HX1 board, which uses the Radiometrics H1 300 milliwatt radio module. And then we have the Pie in the Sky board, which has got a whole bunch of, it's got a GPS module on there, and temperature sensor, and allows for a Raspberry Pi camera for live image transmission. So that's pretty cool. That's a Pie in the Sky. And then we've got UU gear. We're very nearly done now. So they've got the 7-port USB USB hub. So basically you can plug in 7 other things to your Raspberry Pi. You've got the Witty Pi 2. It looks like a whole bunch of stuff. It's got real-time clock, power management, and a bunch of other bits and pieces on there. Looks like you can put a coin cell battery on there. We've got the Witty Pi, which is similar to the Witty Pi 2. Again, it allows real-time clock power management to your Pi. And we've got the Zero to Go, which is a power supply that accepts 5 volts, 5 to 26 volts. So you can basically connect extra power to your Raspberry Pi. And then we've got the Zero 4U, which is a 4-port USB hub as well. Okay, Waveshare. So I like Waveshare. They do some pretty cool stuff. I think I've got a couple of different Waveshare displays. I've got a nice Adafruit display here as well, actually. This is I think it's a 3.5 display. Anyway, I digress. So we've got the 2.13 inch e-ink display. Why have I gone out of focus again? Focus. It's not going to do that, is it, until I get really close? Look at me, look at my... There we go. So we've got the e-ink display, we've got the high precision ADDA board, so that can do like from analog to digital and back again. And we got the True Color RGB LED hat 8x8, and we've got the True Color RGB FAT 4x8, so it's half the number. And we have this almost looks like a PCA 9685 board. This one is another 16 servo board for your Raspberry Pi, and that's all the boards I could find. So if there's a board that's missing from this, please let me know in the comments and I will add that. And I'll also check with Phil on pinout.xyz to make sure it's on there too. But we want that to be as authentic a source as possible, authoritative as a source. So we've got merch. We have a whole bunch of merch. I've actually got a new mug. I think I've left it down in the house. Oh, there it is. So Alex has got... just been using the new mugs. We've got the BurgerBot mug, and we have the Kev's Robot one as well. These make your drinks taste... In fact, Alex has finished her drink there. Taste delicious. And Alex is also wearing the BurgerBot. Let's go full screen. There we go. The BurgerBot t-shirt. So that's the with Kev's Robot on the back as well. And you can also get the Robot Maker hats as well. So all the merch is there. If you want to support the show and you want to do that in a sort of a fun way, this is a way that you can do it, and they're really good quality as well. The hats are really, really good quality. So yeah, if you're not joined our Discord server, you want to consider going over to kezrobots.com/discord and joining the growing community of people over there. And if you've not checked out our resource section on kezrobots.com, then go ahead and check that out. So kezrobots.com/resources, there's a whole bunch of things like a glossary of robotic components. There is how things work, how common things work, and we'll do a bit of a deep dive in each of them. And if you're not following me on social media, you can really do me a favor as well by just give me a follow, which is on TikTok, I'm Kevin McAleer6. On Instagram, I'm Kevin McAleer. On Twitter, I'm at KevsMac. And on Mastodon Social, I'm at KevsMac at mastodon.social as well. So give me a follow on there if you're not already following. Say hi. And if you want to support the show, you can do this in a number of different ways. You can do a super thanks, which is the little button underneath the main reviewer window. Once you've subscribed, you can click thanks and just buy essentially a coffee that way. You can do a super chat if you're watching live now. I shall make sure we got our super chat functionality switched on so we can give people a shout out. There we go. And we've also got the buy me a coffee thing that's just appeared down at the bottom of the screen as well. So if you go to buymeacoffee.com/Kevin McAleer, or you can go to kevsrobots.com/coffee, it'll take you to the same place. You can buy me a physical coffee there, and I'll enjoy that beverage on you. And then we have the YouTube membership program, of course, as well. So if you click on the join button, I think for the price of a coffee per month, you can help support the channel. And it means so much to me when people do that. And I get so sad when people leave as well. Okay, let's see. I think we're pretty much at the subscriber part now. Yes, so the supporters. So let's give a shout out to some of our supporters, shall we? So we have Buy Me a Coffee bought me 10 coffees this month because I hit my goal, which was to get, I think, like £100 worth of income from Buy Me a Coffee. So they topped that up, gave me £50, which is nuts. So thank you so much for that, Buy Me a Coffee. I owe you one. Somebody also bought me a coffee as well, who I think they wanted to remain nameless. Then the members, we have DN Court, we have Marlene Brent, of course, as well. You're doing better, Marlene. We have John Rank, we have Tom, we have Shemi, we have Steve Phillips. And then on the YouTube side, we have Bill Hoy, we have Orcsrad39, we've got Carol, Jose, we have Skipper Banks, we've got Jeff Ford, we have Hans from Cheerlights, Michael, and of course Tom as well. So thank you for supporting the show and helping me keep on going. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover off in this show on the pre-recorded part. So it's at this point in the video I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.